Hey guys, welcome back to Scottsdale Living Podcast, the number one podcast in Scottsdale. So I'm going to really ride that one out. I get a lot of use out of it. Today we've got this can be a great conversation. We've got Dennis Robbins with the Scottsdale Charros, and this is an organization that really hugely supports the community. So I'm really looking forward to kind of diving into it. But I mean, so you guys basically from 1961, it started out as some guys just helping get baseball going in the Valley, right? Is that kind of the deal?
Yeah. Thanks, John. This is great to be on with
Thank
you. So the Charros really were part of the Scottsdale Chamber. And before that, there was a group called the Scottsdale Baseball Club,
right,
who got together and said, hey, we want to promote Scottsdale, and what's a good way to do that? And let's think about spring training. And so they actually went and carved a corner out of somebody's farm, right where the field is now.
Oh, really? Still to
right
this day?
Exactly where it is. And they raised money. They sold seat licenses and raised about $100,000, and they built that stadium. And before that, the owner of the, I'm trying to think, I think it was the Orioles. The owner of the Orioles was in town playing golf, and he walked into a local restaurant, and someone from the Scottsdale Baseball Club said, hey, why don't you bring the Orioles to Scottsdale and play spring training?
So at this point, there's no teams.
There's nothing here, right? And so, and the owner of the Orioles said, build me a stadium and I will. Wow. And so that was the impetus for them to go out and do that. So they built a stadium, and true to his word, he came out the next year when they built the stadium.
That's crazy.
He was here for a couple of years, and things changed. So we've actually had 5 teams here over the course of the 50s all the way till now. So the Scottsdale Baseball Club existed for 5 or 6 years, and then they said, hey, we want another group to take this over, and they dedicated the field to the city. They went to the chamber, and the chamber formed the Charros, and then we just really were the boots on the ground, the sweat equity,
totally.
Selling tickets and doing concessions and being ushers and all that kind of thing for a long time.
And that's still to this day. I mean, that's a big part of what you guys do every year, right?
It is. It's evolved tremendously. Now we're in a 3-way contract with the city and the Giants, and so now we sell the baseball programs when you walk in the front door. We sell most of the advertising in the stadium, all the banners and everything you see in the field. And then we have the Charro Lodge out in right field.
Which is really fun.
Which is really fun. Cool, it's a VIP ticket, food and beverages included, and we seat about 700 people there. And so we buy like 10,000 tickets a year from the Giants and then resell those to our customers. So that's how we make it.
That's really cool.
Yeah.
I love it. So what's the evolution of kind of being, helping get the baseball thing going, becoming your own freestanding, I mean, it's a 501c3, right? And so that's a big evolution. And you guys have kind of branched out a little bit into education as well. Is that the thing?
For sure. So, we weren't started to be a fundraising organization. We were really, like I said, just labor and trying to promote the city and the restaurants and hospitality and heads and beds, that kind of thing. But in the 80s, we started making a little bit of money, and we thought, what should we do with this? And so we really looked into education. And we started an education dinner for outstanding kids in high school. And it really has evolved to one of the biggest things that we do, if not the biggest. So really, the money that we raise, half of it goes to nonprofit charities in the community.
The list of charities is really impressive.
Yeah, so we give like 90 to 100 applications. We give to 50 or 60 of those charities every year. And then the other half of that money goes into education. And we have a Charro assigned to every school in Scottsdale, and we give money to teachers in Scottsdale, and then we have a huge scholarship program. And so, it's education is one of the big things. Yeah.
So kind of elaborate a little bit, because I was reading a little bit. So you have a Charro that's actually assigned to each school in Scottsdale Unified School District. So what do they do? I mean, they're interacting with the staff to see what they need, or the school, or how's that work?
Yeah, it's really just, it's our way of trying to figure out what's going on in the schools, what they need. They're armed with some money. They said, hey, I've got some money for you to do small things. What can I help with? And then also to help promote our scholarship program. So we have people applying for those. And then also we have another grant application process where schools can apply for grants, and then they can do other things. They can put in furniture. They can, one of the middle schools needed sound equipment for their gym. And so they applied for a grant, got money for that. And so there's all these things that are, schools can't be, they're not funded with everything from the district. Totally. And so they look for outside help. And so we have some really cool things that we have helped with over the years that were small, and then they grew into these big programs that then the district took over. So a couple of examples is Chromebooks, a computer, and the district wanted to do one computer for every kid, 1-to-1, right? and they just didn't have the funds. And so we bought a bunch of computers over 2 or 3 years to kind of help to get computers in every classroom. And then remember when robotics was really popular, and some of the schools had really good programs, other schools not so much, and they were getting into these national competitions. And so we were paying for them to go to these national competitions. And then the district saw how important that was, and they made it into a co-curricular program, much like the bands are. So you take band for an hour during school, but then you have band after school, and robotics became the same thing.
Oh, that's cool.
So that's kind of neat. And then we also just did another one that's really interesting. There's a group called Read Better, Be Better, and they have 5th graders and 3rd graders paired up with each other to read. And
kind of a mentorship thing.
Exactly.
Yeah,
so
really cool.
the reader leader, the 5th grader, is helping the 3rd graders read. And so we paid for that last year, and now the district's taking it over and expanding it. And so we're kind of like that experimental money.
You're the pilot.
Let's see if it works. Yeah,
the pilot program.
And then
That's really cool.
And then the district says, "Oh, we'll take that over."
Sure.
Yeah.
No, I love it. So tell me about your kind of journey into this, because you were a city council member 8 years. Is that right?
Yeah.
Wow. So how do you progress from that into, and obviously you're an attorney by trade, right?
Mm-hmm.
So how do you progress from, an attorney, a city council member, to running the Charros? I mean, it seems to be a shift in kind of career.
It is a little bit. I grew up in Scottsdale and knew of the Charros. My dad was a Charro for a number of years, and a lot of the people that he knew a lot of the local politicians. I mean, when I grew up here, we were a much smaller town, and
you've seen the growth, right? The evolution.
Yeah. And we lived way out north, so we were kind of at Scottsdale and Shea. And
that's way, I know, right? Think about it.
Yeah,
that's way up north at the time.
It was. And so I just always loved this town. In fact, I grew up across the street from Herb Drinkwater, who was a mayor forever. And just
Drinkwater Boulevard.
Exactly.
Right? Yeah.
And he was just a larger than life figure. And I just loved his enthusiasm for Scottsdale.
Sure.
And so I always hoped I could run for city council. And so right about the time I ran for city council the first time, I also got involved in the Charros. And so they were kind of hand in hand, and community service is just what I love. And so finally, when I was able to break away from business and legal stuff and work for the Charros full time, I jumped at it. And so I love what I do.
Yeah, that's a killer move. I love it. So tell us a little bit about the organization. I mean, is there how big's the staff? I mean, kind of budget things. What's it look like?
Yeah, so we have active members. You come into the group and you're an active member for 7 years, and you do everything that we have on our plate. You're kind of required to do everything. And then you become a life member, and you can be as involved as you want, or you can kind of ride off into the sunset if you'd like. We have a small 4-person staff. Most everything that we do is all through our volunteers.
Totally.
We have our Charros are our sales force, they're our labor force, and so without all that volunteerism, we couldn't handle what we do.
Yeah. So how many volunteers are there?
So we have 45 actives, and we have about another 175 lifers.
Gotcha.
So we have about 100 to 120 that are always doing things that are very involved, and then we have some that come and go over the year.
Right.
Yeah.
So let's swing back to because I'm a huge baseball fan. I love it. I'm a Tigers fan. I wish the Tigers were here, but they're in Joker Marchant Stadium in Florida. So spring training, the Cactus League, $700-800 million impact in Arizona.
Yeah.
That's crazy.
Yeah. They do an impact study every other year or so, and $700 million impact. And it's like, I tell people this, and it's like having a Super Bowl every year in the Cactus League. Yeah. It's just such a amazing impact. It really is.
And basically, so you guys are the start of that whole thing in Arizona.
We were one of the early teams. I think when the Orioles came here, there were 4 teams in the Cactus League, or just in spring training. There was something going on in Casa Grande, and there's some things going on in Yuma, and even
in Tucson.
Tucson too, right? Yeah, the Diamondbacks started out in Tucson.
Yeah, I remember that
with the Rockies.
Yeah.
So it's evolved over the years. Now there's 15 teams in the Cactus League and 15 in the Grapefruit League, so it's evenly split. And it's really nice because here everything's fairly close. In Florida things are really spread out, so it's a lot different,
right?
So that helps us a lot. It really does.
Yeah. So what's that evolution going to look like going forward? Well, swing back a little bit. So if I remember correctly, sometime in like the 60s, where you guys were really instrumental in kind of keeping the Cactus League together.
Yeah, it was in the 80s when, in fact, I was just looking at an article about this. Jim Bruner, who's one of our members of the Charros, who was on the city council and the board of supervisors, worked with Rose Mofford. There were some teams that wanted to leave. They were being lured away by the Grapefruit League and some of the stadiums, even Scottsdale Stadium. In fact, we were the first one in the Cactus League in the 80s when things were looking a little rough to go to our voters and say, hey, will you float a bond to pay for a new stadium? And so in 89, our citizens voted yes to float a bond, and we rebuilt Scottsdale Stadium, much like it looks today. And that right after that, the county passed a tax that you've seen in the newspaper. It was that rental car tax that was used to fund a bunch of stadiums in town. And so that kept a lot of the stadiums here because, cities didn't have any direct funding sources, and the teams, back in the 80s and 90s weren't paying for anything. Much like now they're paying for more than they used to. And
just the evolution of spring training and the facilities. I mean, just in the last probably 10 or 12 years, it's crazy, right?
It is.
I see like the Diamondbacks and the Rockies, boy, that's a place, man.
Right.
They got a lot going on.
Well, and that's Indian community built that. And
the Salt River Pima community, right?
Right, exactly. And and they're a great partner as well. But a lot of the communities around have built it using that sales tax, rental car tax. And we're probably, and so it's really kind of funny. So we built that first stadium, like I said, $150,000 in the 50s.
Wow.
And then really when the Giants got here, and that thing stood until 92.
Oh, wow. Okay.
So it was around for 30, 40 years. And then, and we've even made, and in 2005, they made upgrades. And then in 2019, we made upgrades. So we've invested a lot of money in that stadium, and it shows because and we're lucky because we have it right in our downtown, and it's just such a great location.
It is killer. So is there kind of talk sometimes, because I mean, I hear a lot of people talk about, especially recent years, it's gotten kind of expensive to go to spring training, Is there, I mean, between like, I know you guys don't control this, but has the Cactus League had conversations about maybe bringing back some cheap seats or making it a little, more affordable for folks?
No, I know that is a huge issue. And the teams, it used to be the Cactus League, there were only 3 or 4 teams that made money during the Cactus League, and the rest of them was just a business expense. It was really about the baseball players, getting them ready for the season, and it wasn't about making money on a separate season. Well, everything's a revenue stream now, and so
totally.
Right, and so they're really trying to make it not a loser but a moneymaker. The Giants, the Dodgers, the Cubs, they've always made money because they're just popular teams. They're good organizations.
Well, a ton of retirees, right? Yeah.
Right, and they have a huge fan base here in Phoenix. Some of the other teams that are here just don't have as big a following, and they still, I think, struggle to make money. But you're right. It's definitely a lot more expensive than it used to be, and that does keep people away. It does. I mean, luckily we have a lot of grass seats, and those are decently cheap. Middle of the week games are better, but it's high priced. It is.
Yeah, it's too bad. I mean, I feel like it's in different stadiums have different pricing, right?
Yep,
so I mean,
absolutely.
I know that if you go farther out, whether you're going out to like Glendale or out to those guys, it seems to be a little less than if you're here in the Scottsdale area, but it's still gotten a little pricey.
Yeah.
But tell us, so is that your main source, or is that your only source of revenue for the programs that you guys do?
It has been for decades. It was our main source. It was just really so lucrative for us. We really found our niche, and thankfully between the city and the Giants, they allow us to do what we do because there's not any other groups in town that do exactly what we do, and we're so integral to running spring training, and so we're thankful for that, and really happy with that partnership. But we knew all our eggs were in one basket, and then especially when we had the pandemic. And
shut down.
It really affected our revenue stream. We're like, oh my gosh! So we've created some others. So we have a really pretty successful golf tournament that's going on. We actually have a license plate.
I saw that. Really cool.
It says supporting Arizona education. It's a grayscale Arizona flag. It's really popular. It's been around for just over a year. And we're now 7th most popular in the state.
Oh, wow,
there's like
cool.
60 plates.
And is that strictly a Charros license plate?
Well, it comes to us because we're the ones that you have to go through the legislature and get it approved. And I mean, there's a ton of them out there. Like the Cardinals plate and the Suns plate and the Veterans plate. All those things go to specific organizations. Right. And ours, we decided not to put Charros. We just wanted to support education more broad appeal statewide and have a cool design as well. And so But it's all coming back to us and funding our education program.
Sure.
So it's really allowed us to step up our gifting to
Mm-hmm.
our scholarships into all the schools. So
Yeah, I mean, we talked about the schools a little bit in the one-on-one there, but you guys give away a ton of scholarship money as well, right?
we do. We started this. So there's 5 high schools in Scottsdale,
Mhm.
and one of the schools was not as successful as the others. Coronado High School,
Mhm.
our oldest school, and we said, we really want to do something for Coronado. So we created what's called the Coronado Promise Program, and it has like 2 parts to it. One's the scholarship side, where we say if you graduate from Coronado with a certain GPA and you want to go to college, we'll pay for college, a 2-year college or a certified trade school.
Mm-hmm.
And so 3 years ago, we gave away 15 scholarships. 2 years ago, 25, and last year, 42.
Wow.
And 42 scholarships was their graduating class was 190. So we gave scholarships to 25% of the class.
Wow, that's crazy.
So we have like 80 kids we've given scholarships over the last
Mhm.
3 years, and it's just really blowing up. And so we're on a campaign right now to raise a ton of money to help
Sure.
fund that. And we really want to expand that to all the schools, any student in Scottsdale.
Mhm.
So the Coronado Promise Program, or what may become like the Arizona Promise, is something that we're really focused on right now. And that license plate will help, and just general fundraising will help. And then the other side of that is getting the kids college ready. That Read Better, Be Better program I talked about before, about 5th graders reading
Sure.
to 3rd graders. That helps those kids become college ready when they get to college
Right.
or high school. And so we're invested in that. And we're trying to raise more money. We've had some alumni from Coronado give, and now we're in the community trying to raise some significant dollars.
Yeah, I mean, I've been involved in really large like capital campaigns through the YMCA, that kind of thing. That it's a thing of its own, right? I mean, so is that
Absolutely.
pretty much volunteer driven? Is that how you guys are doing
Yep, it is.
Yeah.
It is. We're behind the scenes trying to raise some money
Yeah.
internally, until we get to a certain level, and then
Right.
we'll kind of make it a public thing. But the focus is definitely on getting those kids college ready, and then scholarships, and it's working. But we could expand it for sure.
Yeah, 100%. And you have scholarships that are not tied just strictly to Coronado too.
Right. So one of the ones we've started, actually we've been doing this one for over 20 years. We have what's called the Future Teacher Scholarship, and we
Mhm.
give 2 scholarships a year to SUSD seniors who want to stay in state and
Mhm.
become teachers. And so we've done that for 20 years. So we've basically put 40 teachers, into the system. And we have 2 freshmen, sophomore, juniors. So we have 8 kids every year that, kind of turns
Sure.
over. And it's
Is
a really
that a full 4-year scholarship?
Yeah,
As long as
it
they
is.
maintain,
Yep.
whatever the
Yeah,
requirements are.
4-year scholarship,
Right.
and they're at ASU,
Mhm.
and so at the at the ASU Teachers College, and that's been a great successful
Sure.
program. We also have done an SEC scholarship for a couple kids a year for that, and we've expanded to a couple others as well. So it's a fun process.
Yeah,
It really is.
it's amazing.
The other thing that we do that's really cool in education is we've been doing this for 35 years.
Mhm.
Back to when we were trying to figure out what to do with money, is we honor a teacher from every school in the district. So
Mhm.
there's 30 teachers. And then we take 2 high school kids. So there's 10 high school students, and we do an education banquet. And we give the teachers a $2,000 stipend.
Wow.
We have
Is
their
that like a classroom stipend or just
they
for
could
them?
just
Oh,
personal.
that's
yeah.
great. That's
and
fantastic.
so they're announced by their school, then they come to our banquet, we honor them, their principals are there, we invite the community, and we have speakers. And so, the teachers don't get enough love at
Sure.
all. And
Yeah.
that's one of our ways and that's one of the reasons why we also have that Charo in every school, because they help the principal with that process. And we really want to be a part of whatever they need.
Sure.
Yeah.
So kind of off the topic question, but I mean, you're the executive director, right?
Right.
And even though it's a 501c3 and not for profit, it's still a business in a sense,
For sure.
right?
Yeah.
So I mean, what do you see, with the especially as social media has evolved and all that kind of stuff? I mean, how do you guys approach getting the word out? Like helping people understand who you are and what you do. I mean, we see it spring training for sure, but I mean, outside of that, how do you guys approach getting, just getting out to the public?
Yeah, it's interesting because really our history, we've always been under the radar,
Right.
behind the scenes. It wasn't about us. It was
Mhm.
about the community. And I mean, that's still true.
Sure.
But you're right. Now that everything's more in the open and social media drives a lot of what we do, we've kind of gone out into the limelight and try and promote ourselves a little bit more, because we want people to go to the games and to our golf tournament. And actually, we're running the Prado del Sol parade now as well.
Oh, wow, that's cool. Is that new?
Yeah, we took over the parade a couple years ago.
Okay, cool.
The city came to us and said, hey, we have this committee that's amazing and done really good things with this, but they're looking for some long-term stability.
Sure.
Would you guys be interested in running it? And so we looked at it for a year, and then the pandemic came and
Yeah.
it got canceled. So the last 2 years, we've been in partnership with the committee that's been involved with it, and we're basically the main fundraiser. And then we manage a lot of it, and they're still working on the actual day of. It's a huge operation to do a parade.
It's crazy.
And then the after event, the 4-hour Trails End Festival, which is awesome. And we love it. We've ridden in it as a Charro organization for over 50 years, so it's a big part of our history as well. And so we thought this is great because we're focused on the Western heritage of Scottsdale as much as we are, in the other things that we do, and so it just fit with everything that we do. So yeah, it's part of getting the word out, telling people that the Charros, if you spend money at spring training, or if you come to the Parada del Sol, or buy a license plate, or we also are an umbrella organization for the state tax credit program. So we collect a lot of money for the state tax credit program, and then we give it directly to the charities as like a pass through. And so that, whenever you see every charity asking for state tax credit money, we do that too, and we collect it, and then they tell us where to give it, and so that's kind of a fun thing as well. So, yeah, I mean, we're in all the social media channels and all that kind of stuff as well, but we're not great at it yet. But we're still finding our way.
Well, we're big at social media.
Yeah,
so,
you are.
Yeah, we'll do whatever we can to help you guys for sure. Because I've been to a couple of the game day experiences, right, at the VIP section of the Charros. Tell us a little bit about what that looks like. And I know you do it for groups as well, not just individual tickets. So can you kind of walk us through what that experience is and how people can do that, whether it's, for team building, that kind of stuff? I mean, it's really cool.
Yeah, sure. Thank you. It's so we have a lot of it's interesting. We have a lot of season tables. So we sell season tables. We sell individual game tables and tickets as well. And then, we have a whole group section where, companies buy tickets for their employees, or we have associations that'll be in town for a convention and they want to go to a game. I mean, all kinds of reasons. And so you buy your ticket. It gets you into the stadium, so you can go anywhere you want in the stadium. And then there's a separate entrance into the Charro Lodge, and then we have food and we have beverage, and you can sit in your assigned seat or walk around the lodge, and we're right out there in right field. We have really good seating and good viewing. It's kind of like going to the Phoenix Open, where you don't watch a lot of golf. You're there to kind of
box or whatever.
Yeah, you're kind of there to mingle with people.
Totally.
It has that vibe for sure. I mean, there's some people that really love the baseball side of it, and that is fun. But we have TVs throughout, and it's kind of a sports bar feeling.
Yeah. It's way more of an experience than it is a baseball game necessarily.
It is. So it's fun. It's great to hang out. It's great. People bring their clients or their employees, and it's just a good, fun experience.
Sure. Yeah. So that relationship, I mean, you're in the middle of two multi-billion-dollar organizations, the city of Scottsdale and the San Francisco Giants.
Yep.
I mean, how is that interaction? I mean, it obviously they're great and they're great supporters, right? But that's got to be kind of fun. I mean, to see how that all works.
It is. It was fun. They allowed us to be very involved in the process when we did this new stadium upgrade. They invested another $50 million into all these facilities, new locker rooms and meeting rooms and all this stuff for the Giants, which is cool because they were really, if you know where their dugout is, all their stuff used to be underground, under the parking lot. It was really old, and they did need an upgrade. And so, but we also built this really cool 10,000 square foot field house that the city rents out to groups. So we hold our education banquet there, and we hold another community celebration there. And there's some great multi-use, community use facilities that were built into this thing, because a lot of the hotels in downtown Scottsdale are like boutique hotels, so they don't have big meeting areas.
Oh,
right?
yeah, totally.
And so that was one of the benefits of this upgrade.
I didn't even know that existed.
Yeah, it's really neat. It's right there on Osborn. It took out half the parking lot, but it's a great, just a big box, but you can make it into whatever you want. The city has its state of the city address there. There's all kinds of meetings that happen there every year. And so it's a really nice facility. We added a second deck onto the Charro Lodge at the same time and put more shade in there.
Sure.
And so, which we're paying for, which is really interesting. The Giants put in a lot of money. We put in a bunch of money over time. DNC, the concessionaire, also they upgraded a bunch of things. They invested in it as well. So it was really, in the past, it was all on the back of the city and the taxpayers.
Right.
But this time the city was like, hey, Giants, you need to step up. Charros have to step. And we did. Everybody stepped up and made this happen. And so really it was a $50 million project, and I think the city did half, and then everybody else was the other half, and so it was great. And so it was fun to be a part of that process, even though we had a little tiny slice of it, to see how the whole thing evolved and how they, built and managed that facility. The Giants, the Giants are a first-class organization.
Yeah,
they really do it right. And at the same time, they were building their new practice facility too, because they're moved from Indian School Park over to Papago, where the A's used to be, right? So they built a new facility there, and they're good at it.
They did a lot to that facility too. It's way nicer than it was. They did a great job.
Yeah, they did. So they're a great partner. And again, they allow us to do what we do because no other community group does it. Usually, a lot of the money that we make, the Giants could be making, or the city could be making.
Yeah, absolutely.
And then it would just disappear into their budgets, right? So it is kind of nice that there's a nonprofit in the middle that nobody's putting this money in their pocket. It's really going back to the community.
Yeah, totally. Yeah. So I don't know if this is in your wheelhouse, but I kind of feel like, and I could totally be wrong because I just don't know, but I feel like the stadium doesn't really get that much use outside of spring training. Is there plans for that? Or, is there something in place to try to make it, more stuff going on?
Yeah, no, that's a great question. And that's something the city's really tried to do for so long. And it is a unique space.
It's a baseball stadium.
Yeah, it's a little weird. I was there, I think before we did our upgrade, when Penn State was in town for the Fiesta Bowl, they did a really cool pep rally.
Oh, that's cool.
They put a stage right on like home plate,
right?
And they had the band there, and all the people were right in the stands, low, and they had this really, like 3,000 people, and had this really neat pep rally. So you could do things like that, but that's why this 10,000 square foot multi-use piece is part of it. You can actually rent out the locker room. So
oh, that's kind of cool.
You can have there's corporate events where people rent out the locker room. It's really neat. The press box is a bunch of spaces people could rent out. And then on the third floor, they also have like a 1,500 square foot, really neat viewing area that you can rent out for things too. So they've made a lot of really unique spaces that citizens, companies, whatever can use. And it's getting a lot more use. There are wedding receptions there, and the bar mitzvahs and conventions and all that kind of stuff. So.
Yeah, it's so crazy because we're really blessed. We get the city council members come in on the podcast all the time, and they're fantastic. But I think it comes down a lot of times to just how do you get that word out?
Right.
You know what I mean? It's a really challenging thing to do. Just like the Charros, like we're talking about social media, and the city has the same issue, because people are so segmented on where they get their information anymore. You know, it's really tough to share that out there. So tell us a little bit, what's the game plan? What are you guys looking forward to? I know you got this big campaign going on. Yep. What other things are you looking to get into?
That's an awesome question. It's very timely because we had a couple slow years through COVID, and then we came out of it, and we had added a golf tournament and added all this other stuff. And so our members actually felt really stretched thin this past year. And we just went through a new strategic planning process. And one of the things we said is okay, we're not going to add any more new things. We just want to do what we do currently, better.
Tune it up
well. Yeah. So we're really focused on that. And the education side of what we do can certainly grow and expand. And that's what we're working on. And just improving internal processes and becoming more efficient is part of the plan. And then just try to raise as much money as we possibly can, because the needs, it's one of the hardest things. One of the best things we do is give away money. Hardest things we do is saying no to all the, there's just never enough to go around. Right. And so to say no to a lot of nonprofits, is heartbreaking, really. And so if we can raise more money, we can do more in the community. And so that's the whole point, but you can never raise enough. And we're there, it's not just about raising money. It's really about being a resource to the community and focusing on education, promoting certain things within the community. And that's what we're here to do as well. And so we're not just a fundraising organization. We really want to be a resource in the community. Yeah.
So if somebody just in the community at large, Bob and Mary living in North Scottsdale want to come down and volunteer, do you guys take volunteers like that, or is it kind of like closed loop?
Yeah, it's harder because we have so many volunteers internally already that we just staff as jobs. These are all the jobs we have to fill, and we fill them with our members. We have a few. So we have the Charros as an entity, and then we also have a foundation where we put a lot of our money and we write up a lot of our checks out of. And on that board is a diverse board. We have Charros and community members on that board. So it's mixed, and they've brought a lot of resources and a lot of knowledge to help us be better than what we are today. And so through those efforts, we think we can expand what we do and expand our reach and expand all the opportunities that we have. And so between the Charros and our foundation, both those entities are out there doing good work.
Sure.
So, yeah.
Yeah, and I know a lot of people, especially with charities, they kind of wonder what's the decision making process. So I mean, what do you guys go through to kind of vet what you're doing with the funds? Because I mean, you're the stewards of the money, and it's like I'm sure you guys are really concerned about doing the right thing. How does that process look like internally for you guys to say like, hey, here's Family Promise, here's Ted, we want to really help these guys? What kind of process do you go through for that?
Yeah, so we do have an annual grant application process where everybody actually files, a grant application. Family Promise, we've been giving money to them for years,
right?
And they've had some really interesting asks over the years. Sure. Couple of the things that are super just on that point, because I'm glad you brought them up, because they were having problems with their washing drying machines because they were wearing out because they they have so much use,
stuff,
right?
Man. Yeah, it's crazy.
And so they came to us and said, hey, our grant request this year is that we buy these commercial grade, expensive washer dryers, if you could help us out. We're like, sure. And so that was what we gave the money for that. It's really neat to see where it actually goes, right?
Yeah.
One year
right down the street.
Yeah,
so,
I know.
Mean, that's kind of cool,
And one year they had a big bed bug problem. Like a couple people came in and just, right? And
happens.
It does. And so they're like, what can we do? And so we helped them buy a trailer with this heater system in it. And so everybody who stays at Family Promise takes all their stuff, puts it inside this trailer, and it heats it up before it comes into the facility. Sure. So any of the bed bug problem's gone. And so it's just fun to see where some of our money's gone in instances like that. But to get back to your original question, we have a grant application process. We have a committee that vets all those. Sometimes we'll bring in the nonprofits to ask them questions if we don't know who they are. We probably about a third of the organizations we give to every year.
Sure.
We also have some really small organizations that are all volunteers. Like there's one called Wigged Out, which is where they buy wigs for cancer patients.
Oh, wow, that's really cool.
And they're just all volunteers, and to give $5,000 or $10,000 to a group like that is massive. Yeah. As opposed to giving $5,000 or $10,000 to the YMCA, which we do as well. Sure. But it's just a totally different scale. Right? Yeah. And so it's almost more satisfying giving money to a really tiny organization than it is an established one.
Yeah, it's crazy. Like we had Oakley's Promise in here the other day. I don't know if you guys ever met them. It's a not-for-profit, and I can't remember the lady's name off the top of my head, but her pet had drowned in her pool because the contractors covered the pool with a tarp and didn't really explain what was going on, and she didn't realize it. So their whole thing is, to educate consumers and builders and contractors on how to do that. But I mean, that it's kind of cool to work with somebody small like that, because that money makes a huge impact, right? Right. Yeah. So tell us a little. I mean, we've had a great chat. You're a local, so I kind of like to throw this question out there. You're in Old Town, right? You live around here. Yep. Favorite restaurant? And you're a native too, right?
I know. There's so many good ones. Yeah. There's so many. I mean, I love Los Olivos.
Oh yeah.
How can you not? It just depends what you're looking for. There's so many good places to go. But I love our Mexican food. I love the Mission. Yeah. I love going to I love where there's live music playing, so, I don't know, the tavern, the Old Town Tavern's fun, but you could go to the higher end ones
Paul
as
too.
well.
He's a good dude at Old Town Tavern.
Yeah. There's just some really fun Maley's on Main that I can walk to that from where I live. And there's, fun places to go. And a lot of them have been helping us, supporting us in spring training, and our advertisers in our magazine and whatnot. We have a whole Old Town section, so we really try and give some love to to Old Town, where all the people come after they go to the games and they go into Old Town, and we want to support them. And so,
that's a source of revenue too, right? I mean, you sell advertising in the magazine.
Yep.
Okay. Excellent.
We do.
And that's just a game day publication,
right?
Okay.
Yeah.
Excellent.
Yeah. I mean, that's anything printed is becoming less and less viable, right? Everything's so much more electronic.
Yeah.
But it's still nice to get something in your hand. And a lot of the people that come to the spring training games they take a week off of work, they come to Arizona, for spring break, and then they go to a bunch of games, and they look forward to getting that program every year. And so, I mean, it's gone from, 15,000 that we print down to probably 5. But still, it's a big
people
thing.
love it.
Yeah, they do.
So tell you what, this is your camera. Go ahead, introduce yourself, the Charros, give us all your handles, all that kind of stuff. So if anybody wants to get a hold of you, they can do that.
Oh, yeah. Dennis Robbins, Executive Director of the Scottsdale Charros. We're at www.charros.com. Actually, we also own springtraining.com as well.
Oh, wow.
And we own grapefruitleague.com too. And so we had some really smart Charros back in the day. Yeah, we had some smart Charros back. In fact, we had a couple nasty letters back and forth with MLB on springtraining.com, and they finally gave up on it. We said, well, buy it from us. And so, but we use that now for our ticketing site where people can go on there and buy tickets to our games.
Sure.
But yeah, so charros.com, we're pretty easy to find.
Yeah. So Dennis, there's one thing that the community can do to help you guys. What would it be?
Our biggest source of revenue is the lodge. So buying tickets to spring training at the lodge. And then, and we really promote and are really passionate about the parade too. Coming to the parade every year is such a big thing. And that's a free event. So it's really cool. The lodge is a little pricey to get into. But a lot of that money goes to good causes. On the other side, it was really nice to get involved in the parade, but it's a free event, right? And it's a community event. And so you can stay after and go to the Trails End Festival, which is really
which I think is right across the street, right?
Kid oriented.
Right up in the middle of it.
We are. It's right on Brown. So, it's right
We're
down
on Brown.
Exactly. So just south of Indian School. So our events, and then, support your public schools, your local schools is really big. And, we just want to make sure that people understand all the good things that are out there in Scottsdale, and we want to be part of it.
Well, I appreciate you. Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you. Dennis Robbins, Scottsdale Charros. Fantastic conversation. Looking forward to sharing this one, and thank you for being here.
Thanks, John.
Absolutely.
Yeah.